the meeting to order for the 2nd of June, and I welcome everyone here tonight. Introduction. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Item 1.1, apologies for absence.
Mr Mayor, we have Councillor Duffy at the Mining and Energy Related Council's conference, and we have Councillor Peterson, who is going to be slightly late.
He's on his way.
And we have Councillor Kinghorn on screen.
Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor McDonald. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 1.2. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of the council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administrative purposes. Item 1.3, I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. 1.4, does any councillor have a declaration of interest? Hang on. Councillor Greenhalgh.
So item 2.3 in the Finance Policy Committee meeting, the small donations grant for Orange High School and Canobolas Rural Technology High, non-significant, non-pecuniary, and I will vote. My son attends Orange High School.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Yes, I have 3 in the Planning and Development Committee meeting, item 2.3, 2.5 and 2.7. These are all, my husband has done work for all of these proponents in these, so I will abstain from voting in all of those.
Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn. Councillor Powell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I've got in the Planning and Development also 2.4, which is the Sharp Road development in relation to Orange Aboriginal Land Council. I'm a voting member of that and I will not.
Thank you. Any others? I've got one myself. Item 2.3, which is the same one as Councillor Greenhalgh. I'm a member of the Orange High School staff, so I'll be leaving the chair and organise Councillor McDonald. Anyway, that's all good. Okay, we've got a couple of presentations before we go into our open forum. Councillor Powell.
Yes, Mr Mayor, we've got a presentation from the it's a program that lies within the Scouts Camp. It's a partnership between Orange Aboriginal Land Council and also Orange Canobolas High School. They presented this here to council, I think it was 2 months ago, Mr CEO, and I'd just like to present that to yourself in relation to.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Powell. And I'll call Rachel Robb up. At the recent local government awards, we did fairly well. I think we had 5 nominations and we won 2 major awards. So what I will do, I'll present them to Rachel, and you can. So congratulations.
I like it to be mayor as well. Everyone, we need to win some more awards. So this is a great honour and privilege. This is the Local Government Professional State Award, so a very prestigious awards for this sector, and we, Orange City Council, got the Work Health and Safety Management System Award, and that was in the risk category, and that was for our work health and safety management system that's been rolled out throughout councils. That was a great achievement. This one we're very, very proud of, which is our First Nations Community Partnership Award, and that was for the Orange Crown Land Negotiation Program, a first in Australia. So, everybody, thank you, staff.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I might just add something to that, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
You certainly can.
I was delighted to be in attendance along with yourself and Councillor Powell. And it was wonderful to see, I suppose the night was all staff from every council throughout New South Wales. And it was about councils and the staff and the achievements that the council, as the staff have done, along with councillors. But I'd just like to pass through you, Mr. Mayor, through the CEO, our congratulations to you and your team for a job well done in representing and winning. All the work in the background is staff.
Thank you.
Councillors take the accolades, but it's the staff who do all the work. So congratulations.
Well, especially the risk one, because we've got an audit and risk committee meeting tomorrow, so we might just put that on the table just to show.
You can do it again.
Okay, we will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. I have 4 speakers. First speaker is Mr. Nick King. Could you come to the microphone, please, Mr. King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's for Council Item 4.1, Notice of Rescission Motion for Maramba Road.
Correct, yes.
I'll just introduce councillors before you go. I feel funny calling Mr. King because he used to teach me at Glenroy Heights, so it's really weird.
Student he was too.
Yeah, don't lie. We've got Councillor Whitten, Councillor Greenhout, Councillor McDonald, Deputy Mayor Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard, Councillor Peterson will be here soon, Councillor Floyd, Councillor Evans, Councillor Miletto and Councillor Kinghorn on screen. So you've got 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. King.
Okay, thank you very much, and congratulations from me for this wonderful award that Council very deservedly won. Well done. Yes, Mr. Mayor, councillors and staff, ladies and gentlemen, well, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address tonight's council meeting. I do so on behalf of the Central West Environment Council, referred to as an acronym QWEC. QWEC consists of representatives from environment groups from major towns and cities throughout the Central West. Now, all of our groups have been involved with environmental issues such as the Maramba Road development application. We've all been from time to time engaged in the fight to save native biodiversity from inappropriate development. One of the reasons I'm speaking on behalf of the Central West Environment Council is the fact that what we're talking about is the fate of the Box Woodland, as a stand of the Box Woodland Ecological Community, of which the Maramba Roads Woodland Community is an example. Now, it's of concern to Central West Environment Council because, in fact, most of the towns and cities that our representatives represent once are in the Central West, and Box Woodland once covered the entire Central West. It was a major ecological community. But due to land clearing for urban residential development, agriculture and mining, there's only a tiny percentage of this vegetation remaining. It's so rare to the extent it's been declared as a critically endangered woodland community. So we have within our local government area an area of significant ecological significance and something which was in danger of disappearing from the planet entirely. Grassy Box Woodland, it's now just been reduced from, as I say, covering most of Central Western New South Wales. It's now been reduced to a few isolated, sparsely scattered stands, such as the one we're referring to at Maramba Road. Now, I know it is beyond It's only a small area and it's below the threshold for legal consideration. But we reject that argument because that's how you lose species, not through mass removal, but by 1,000 cuts. And this could include removal of this particular area, could be another cut. Little by little, it's vital that our community does not condone this attitude, as this is the way, if everybody did it, would ensure species extinction. We do not want to be seen as responsible for one more nail in the coffin, this woodland community. And while it represents an isolated clump, the woodland is actually part of a corridor. It may not be evident to the naked eye or to the inexperienced, but it is actually a part of a corridor that extends right through to Blackman Swamp Creek, which is part of a migratory route to a range of bird species. We went to a rally up there on Saturday and we were frequently drowned out by bird calls as they moved through. So it's an essential part of our urban forest. Speaking of urban forests, I'd just like to congratulate Orange City Council on the fact that recently there was a launch of a proposed urban forest strategy. Now, councillors will all be aware that there's been a consultant employed to develop this particular strategy. One of its objectives, I believe, is to protect and enhance urban biodiversity. An urban forest strategy is something that other members of QEC are very envious of, because in other places in our Central West, we do not have a forward-thinking council. They do not have a forward-thinking council like ours who's considering this and who are looking at basically building on what's already there and making it better. So that's fantastic. However, it can't be it fits in well also with a lot of policies and environmental controls which are already in place in council, and it can be, if it's done properly, be seen as a community commitment, and it can be seen as an example to other local governments within our region, as so many other things have done, hence the awards tonight. So basically we have an opportunity here to lead the way environmentally, because other councils aren't doing this. However, it can't be so if as a community we make it can only be so if as a community we make a commitment to preserving our existing biodiversity. It would be inconsistent for council to support an urban forest strategy while at the same time condoning urban forest destruction. The objectives of our urban forest strategy should be seen to underpin our urban planning. A redesign of the Maramba Road subdivision could be an example of this. We should aim for a redesign that results in affordable housing. Everybody wants that. There's the opportunity for that, as well as allowing for the preservation of our urban forests. We also need to do this to send a message to future developers that the retention and development of our urban forest is a priority when subdivisions are designed and planned. Now, we look forward to Council's decision on the rescission motion put forward by Councillor Mallard. Councillors, I hope you will consider the value of the fragment of box woodland when making your final decision. I also hope that you will also consider the opportunity presented by a win-win redesign that could be an example to Orange City Council's commitment to our urban forest strategy. I'd like to close to remind us of the quote by the famous English poet William Blake, of whom you will all be familiar, who said about trees, "The tree that moves some to tears of joy is in the eyes of others only a green thing that stands in the way." Something to reflect on when you make your decision tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. King. Our next speaker is Katrina Walker from 36 Algona Crescent on the same issue. Thanks, Katrina. I'll just wait. Are you right to go, Councillor Peterson?
Apologies for being late. Plane delayed 2 hours.
Yep. Thank you, Katrina. You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And good evening, other councillors and people here tonight. As the Mayor said, I live in the local area of Algona Crescent and totally enjoy walking up our street to the top of the hill, looking across to Clifton Grove, seeing those incredible views, listening to the birds under those trees, and then turning back towards town and having a magnificent view of Mount Canobolas. It's quite a stunning place to be. And not only me, I take my grandchildren, every visitor who comes to our house, and that's a lot of people, we always go for a walk up there and enjoy that kind of bushland. There's a lot of birds, as the previous speaker said, and just a lot of fun things to find and do up there. And what a privilege to live, for me, in a place where there is a bit of bush. I want to commend this council for thinking about affordable housing, because I work with some of the vulnerable people of Orange, namely the migrants. I teach at TAFE ESL, so I know that housing is a really big issue. They're desperate for that. But to lose that kind of bush would be a really sad thing, I think. When I looked at the plans and saw how small the little places are, I thought, if I was living there, well, I don't know, they don't have access to the park in Spring Street behind the bus stop. They would have to walk up really steep gradients or go right around. So if they're pushing prams or things like that, that makes for a very hard way to go. Then the other thing is just the size of the road. It seems very thin. This is the private road, and I wonder how safe those people would feel if service trucks and fire trucks, etc., could not get up there. So for those reasons, for the bush, for my peace and enjoyment. And I might just also say, you know, some of the difficulties in our area with crime. I had 4 policemen at my door on Saturday night asking about various things happening in the street. And it is an area of very high crime. And I just wonder how much a densely populated housing development there could add to that. Wouldn't like to see that. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Speaker is Mr. Neil Jones on the same development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, council staff and people in the audience. A bit tricky to hear behind here, but I'll speak up as loud as I can. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I'm speaking on behalf of environmentally concerned citizens of Orange Echo in support of the decision motion regarding the development application Maramba Road for 18 housing lots and 1 private road allotment. Echo is a highly respected community organisation that has provided a voice for the community on many important planning and environmental issues over the past 18 years. At all times, Echo works constructively based on well-informed opinions and has a history of supporting council on many key issues. I'm sure that the outcome we are all seeking tonight is to ensure that housing needs are satisfied while improving the amenity of the subdivision and protection of the remnant bushland. It is certainly not about stopping the development going ahead. I know only too well how challenging it is for a councillor to vote against the staff recommendation for approval of a development application. However, I firmly believe that there will always be circumstances or information that comes to light that can justify an informed opposing point of view that expressed in the council report. Echo believes that the council report recommending approval of the Maramba Road DA and the removal of protected vegetation didn't give sufficient consideration to several important planning issues and guidelines, and that these will affect the livability of future residents in the subdivision and the sustainability of remnant vegetation and wildlife habitat. The DA allows for the removal of tree protection provisions and the clearing of an area of woodland on a southern portion of the development. These trees are part of a critically endangered box and red gum woodland which should be retained. No matter how small the area is, the trees and other vegetation make a significant contribution to existing wildlife habitat and the amenity and the aesthetics of the subdivision. You've heard that from the previous speaker. And it's not just about the retention of the trees, and this is very important, the next two things I'm going to mention. There are a number of other design aspects that will negatively impact on the amenity and livability of the subdivision. The layout of the 12 community title allotments. Now remember, there are 12 community title allotments and there are 6 Torrens title allotments. The layout of the 12 community title allotments are serviced by a narrow private road. Does not allow for the planting of street trees on the road verge. There is virtually no road verge, which would have enhanced the amenity and environment of the neighbourhood. This is further exacerbated by the 12 lots being only 400 square metres in size, which limits the opportunity for planting trees on the reduced open space within each lot when you consider the footprint of the house on these small allotments. This highlights the importance of having a landscape plan for the community title lots, which doesn't exist, and retaining as much existing vegetation as possible within the whole subdivision. And another very important issue is the failure of the approved layout to provide pedestrian pathway access from the private dead-end road to the large adjoining public reserve, Ploughman Park, on the corner of Maramba Road and Spring Street. Without this connectivity, future residents will be denied the opportunity to walk with their families for the nearby outdoor recreation on this park or access the public transport in Maramba Road, which travels up past the park. ECHO suggests that an amended design would overcome the deficiencies that I've just mentioned, that is, access and loss of trees without the loss of housing allotments. One option that might achieve this would be through a swap of ownership of land between the developer and council. That is, lot 103, containing the main group of trees planned for removal, could be swapped for a small, undeveloped part of the adjoining Ploughman Park. The transfer of lot 103 to council would not only protect the trees, but would enable it to become a valuable public open space, equally accessible to all residents of the subdivision and others in the neighbourhood. By supporting the rescission motion tonight, you would not be stopping the development. Rather, you would be taking the opportunity to investigate a significantly improved subdivision design, which would meet important housing needs and also demonstrate how environmental outcomes and improved residential amenity can be accommodated in this development. It's a win-win for council and the developer is possible, and it would benefit the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Our last speaker is Mr. Phil Oates, and he's speaking about development application DA 195 10 to 12 Sharp Road. Thank you, Mr. Oates.
Lord Mayor, members of council, and ladies and gentlemen that are gathered around this evening. I'm actually really glad that Nick King and ECHO have spoken before me. Prepared a whole load of rubbish on. I was going to talk about box woodland and the value to the environment and the community. Nick's already been quite eloquent in that regard, and I thank him for it. In relation to the development of 10 to 12 Sharp Road, we stand to lose roughly a hectare of native woodland, some of which is native box woodland. It's relic forest. It's protected by all manner of state and local government regulation. But apparently it's only a tiny little portion and it doesn't really matter. The other native vegetation on 10 to 12 Sharp Road is planted vegetation. It's still native vegetation, but it's planted. According to the proponent, it's planted, so that doesn't matter. But Nick and Echo have already emphasised the value of retaining native woodland here in the Orange local government area. In terms of the development itself, the Tree Wise Men, which I think is a lovely name for an arboriculturalist, they've thank you. They've counted up and they reckon only 34 trees have got to die for this particular development application. I beg to differ. I've been in the civil engineering business and building business for over 30 years, and I've looked at the proponents' earthworks and civil drawings, and Lot 4 in particular, they reckon that they're only going to have to scrape 300 mil off the lot to make a level pad to put something on it. For those of you that work in old money like me, that's 300 mil, and that's barely enough room to put anything down, let alone a decent slab for a house. That being the case, my humble professional opinion that we're going to be looking at deeper excavations. The Tree Wise Men have already acknowledged that their assessment doesn't take into account utility reticulation. It talks about the building envelopes, and I was kind of hoping I might get to do a visual presentation and use their own information against them, but that's apparently not allowed. But the building envelopes are indicative only. Utility layouts are indicative only. So 34 trees is a best guess and doesn't properly represent the total area of trees that have got to die for this little subdivision. That at the end of the day is going to provide community housing, yes, but they're going to subdivide it into 8 lots and have up to, I think, 12 dwellings on it. Only little dog box type dwellings, 100 square metres apiece, which is hardly in keeping with the local neighbourhood. Their own acoustic assessment, for example, talks about a minimum slab on ground, brick veneer and tiled roofs. You can't build that kind of dwelling with only a 300 millimetre scrape in the ground. So, I say, I'd written a load of stuff that I'd meant to mention about relic box woodlands and all that sort of stuff. But Echo and Nick have already done that for me. So I put it to council that, yes, we need community housing, but we don't need to kill 40 or 50 trees to be able to do that. I understand the proponent owns significant areas of already cleared agricultural land. And I think it perhaps might be more appropriate that they build on those cleared areas rather than on this little remnant of woodland. In closing, the remnant of woodland runs along Sharp Road. It's a natural barrier between Sharp Road and the new southern distributor. The east and the west of the subdivision, it's a nature reserve, right? There's a private owner that's kept those areas for nature, for the enjoyment of the community. This little subdivision, 10 to 12 Sharp Road, represents breaking the link between those two areas of woodland, one of which is remnant native box woodland. Can't speak to the area to the east of Anson Street, but it's established woodland nonetheless. I put it to council that it would be a terrible shame to lose that link to the natural environment. And it would be a terrible shame to lose any remnant box woodland, as my colleagues have already mentioned. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening.
That concludes the public forum, and with councillors' permission, I might bring the rescission motion forward to now. Is everyone happy with that?
Way.
Move that way. Seconded by Councillor McDonald. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we'll move on to item 4.1, which is notice of rescission motion by Councillor Mallard, McDonald and Power. Are you all moving that way?
Thanks. I'll move the motion. If I get a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Yep, speaking for it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thanks, councillors. And I'll begin by noting on page 19 in our papers the point that this was brought before the council for a determination because it involved a subdivision that would involve 11 or more lots being created without an existing DCP or a prior endorsed subdivision concept plan. So for those reasons, we're bringing this rescission motion because we really do believe we should give it close scrutiny. And certainly, and as we've already heard in the open forum, in the intervening week since the last meeting, it's really allowed a number of us to identify a few more issues beyond what we covered in the debate at the last meeting that should be considered closely. I do want to emphasise this rescission motion isn't being brought to prevent residential development on the site, but to give council the opportunity to reconsider the detail of it and look at the chance for an amended design that better achieves the planning aims and outcomes. The speakers in the open forum have already presented a lot of information that goes to a number of the key issues. I want to talk now in a bit more detail about the problems I see with the current proposal in terms of the planning aims and outcomes and how some relatively minor adjustments could deliver some much better outcomes for everyone. I wanted to start talking about at page 25 in our papers is the assessment under section 1.7 of the EPNA Act of whether part 7 of the Biodiversity Conservation Act should apply. I thank the staff. Before the last meeting, I requested that biodiversity assessment and have had a review of it. And it's my view that the development proposal doesn't adequately address all of the triggers that are listed there. And in particular, I disagree with the assessment on pages 26 and 27, where it says that the development is not likely to significantly affect threatened species. Basically, the report justifies the impact of clearing the southern patch of woodland as being acceptable for two reasons. Firstly, that it's a small area of woodland, and secondly, that it's of low quality. With the report saying that while there are Blakely's red gum and yellow box trees, the understory in that patch, is, as opposed to the northern patch, which is to be retained under the DA, is made up of exotic grasses and weeds. Now, going to the threatened species listing on the New South Wales Government website that lists this type of woodland as a critically endangered ecological community. The threats, the very first threat listed is habitat loss, degradation and fragmentation from agricultural, forestry, mining, infrastructure and residential development. And the report acknowledges its key threatening process will be contributed to by this development. As I said, at the bottom of page 26, it says it's a very small percentage. But when you look at the government advice activities to assist this species, it says protect all sites from further clearing and disturbance. Not protect 2/3, protect all. And ensure remnants remain connected or linked to each other. And that's really important in terms of this site being a key island.
Sorry, David, we can't close that door. No, not allowed because, yeah, can you just open it? Sorry, David. Thank you. Yep, continue.
To go. Thanks. Being a key island of vegetation and habitat on the ridge line that forms a link across to other patches. That's why it's so significant. And similarly, it notes that disturbed remnants are considered to form part of the community, including where the vegetation would respond to assisted natural regeneration. So that goes to this argument that because it's poor quality, it's okay to get rid of it. The threatened species listing makes clear that the disturbed remnants should be considered part of this community. And in addition to that point, I do note that when we had a community inspection of the site on Saturday, I was with a member of the Orange Field Naturalists. I had the biodiversity assessment with me. She had wandered around that southern patch of woodland. I showed her that it said northern patch has all of these native grasses. It listed the species off. She said, oh yeah, I see those in there as well. Yes, there's blackberries. Yes, there's other weeds in there as well. It's not in good shape and hasn't been looked after by the landowner, but it would be a perfect opportunity. There's a real prospect for regeneration work supported by the community if, for example, this was to become a public site. Moving to some of the other parts of the assessment, I disagree with the assessment on pages 28 and 29 of our papers that the proposal in its current form satisfies the aims of the LEP as listed there, and particularly sorry, I might have got my page numbers mixed up there. Sorry, 27 and 28, that should be. And particularly at the top of page 28, the aims of the LEP, points B, which includes implementing the principles for ecologically sustainable development, and F, to recognise and manage valued environmental heritage, landscape and scenic features of Orange. It's a small feature, but it's an important one, I would say. I also wanted to note on page 29, the existing no build restriction that was on both of the parts of woodland on this site, and that council is the authority to approve the removal of this restriction. But I would again argue, given the information we've already covered and heard in the open forum as well, on the importance of this woodland, we shouldn't agree to vary that restriction. Then going to page 30 and clause 2.3 in particular, the zone objectives of the R2 residential zone. I'd argue the design is currently contrary to those objectives, and especially to the third point, to ensure development is ordered in such a way as to maximise public transport patronage and encourage walking and cycling in close proximity to settlement. As we heard from former councillor Jones in particular, in terms of that pedestrian access from the private road through, that would give residents of this future development access to both a public park and access to the route for the Bowen Loop buses. Without that access, they only have pedestrian access onto Sophie Drive and have a lengthy walk to get to any parkland or to get to any public transport access. So an amendment to the design could achieve that outcome for both residents of the future development and also for the, that would give that access. Sorry, coming to my next point on page 35, the planning outcomes for residential subdivisions under part 7.2 of the DCP. The assessment we're given in the report focuses on whether the design affects the amount of open space, but it overlooks the problems with access to open space that I've just talked about in the current design. So a redesign can achieve this outcome for both residents of the future development as well as for the broader neighbourhood to have that access through there. So my conclusion from all of this is that looking at the likely impacts of the development listed on page 42, the current development proposal doesn't fully satisfy the planning controls and objectives, but with some amendments that to me don't seem too onerous or too complicated, it could do so. We can get an outcome that delivers better housing for the future residents, improved amenity for the community, and improved outcomes for the environment in terms of protecting a critically endangered ecological community and the potential for regeneration. So as I've already said, the aim is not to prevent this development going ahead, but we've got an opportunity, as we've done with a number of other development proposals in this term of council, to say the design could be improved. We can get better housing outcomes that are good for the community, are good for social benefit, and are good for the environment as well. We did it with 103 Prince Street. I know the council staff did great work on the corner of Summer and Woodward Street. We deserve the same in the outer suburbs as well. And if council adopts this rescission motion and allows us to reconsider the matter, then I'll indicate that what I would seek to do is then move a motion that we defer consideration of the application in order to work with the developer on an amended proposal that addresses the concerns we've heard tonight about compliance with the planning outcomes that we've discussed.
you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Speakers? Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and the council took the words out of my mouth. What I've been proposing to do is move an amendment to the motion, and that amendment would be that council defer this matter for 1 month to allow council staff to speak and negotiate with the proponent to possibly amend the design to improve the residential amenities, livability, etc., that meets the community expectations.
So yeah, just wants to have a quick.
There is no motion. This is a rescission. Yeah.
Decision motion.
That's it.
Yeah, just to clarify, and happy to be corrected, Ms Constantine. If the rescission motion gets up, a subsequent motion will be made, and I'm hearing a similar thing, and that motion will be those words or similar. So it's not an amendment, it'll be a subsequent motion if the rescission motion gets up. You don't have those written down when we need them, if we need them? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I thank the councillors for the rescission motion. I'll be speaking against the rescission. We, as councillors, have to take in good faith what's in the report from staff, and I respect the fact that Councillor Mallard is very has a very good knowledge of this subject matter. But a question through you to the CEO and possibly to the Director. The council staff have approved this application. Council have approved this application subject to a rescission. If we were, and it's not just about the trees, this is a full design of the whole development application. What is our legal standing from the developer can say, well, the developer can actually take us to the Land and Environment Court and not they can say, no, we're not going to redesign this. We've got this right.
Quiet in the gallery, please.
Through you, Mr Chair, I think we've just got to look at scenarios here. If the rescission motion gets up, the DA becomes, and correct me if I'm wrong, the DA becomes undetermined. Then it sounds like we might have a subsequent motion for us to then go and talk to the developer. The developer might then tell us to go jump, in which case staff would then bring back the original report or another determination. Now, if the rescission motion does not get up, the DA is approved, on they go. Taking us to court, they can do after 40 days. They could do that already.
We've already gone past the 40 days?
We've gone past 40 days from lodgement.
That was my next question.
Yeah. The point where they could take us to court, or they might take us to court, is if you refuse the DA part of the subsequent report we bring back. So early days?
Yeah. So my third question is that the developer could just, if the rescission gets up and the deferral redesign gets up, they can just say no.
Well, they could take us to court.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
But you have to determine the DA.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Or they'll take us anyway.
My next question was about the 40-day trigger.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think you've just answered that we may have already, we're close to it. Yeah.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm speaking in favour of the rescission motion. Look, I second everything that Councillor Mallard has said. I won't go too much on the environmental issues. I'm going to focus more on the livability perspective. The only environmental side of things I did want to mention was that the northern trees will be protected under this design. One of the approval is to obviously have a tree protection zone. However, when you look at the lot 106, which is right next door, end of that stand of trees, it allows significant cutting, like we're talking 1 to 2 metres in some areas, close up to where those trees are, which means, as old as they are, that's going to affect their roots. Those trees will not survive. So the point is, why are we protecting them if development on that block is going to essentially kill them in the long term anyway? I mean, we just got to look at there. Now, in terms of livability, the slope on that private road is, I don't know how many councillors have the site yet, but it's quite steep. Being a private road, obviously councillors not responsibility maintaining the surface and all that sort of stuff. That's great for us. However, it also means that your rubbish trucks are not going to go up there and collect bins. It's way too small for them. All those residents are going to have to take drive and cart them all the way back up again. Being a higher density subdivision, looking at having residents there of all ages and all abilities. Having a steep road where you've got to drag your bins down and up again is just, I wouldn't want to live there. The fact that there's no DCP master plan for this area, I think, as Councillor Mallard said, it's a really good opportunity for us to get a design that both protects those critically endangered areas. But also, we end up with a subdivision where it's little space, not just now, but I mean, it's going to be here for decades. So do it right. We do it right the first time, and then we're not band-aid fixing it.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm actually going to be voting for the rescission motion tonight. I actually walked in the door tonight thinking I was going to vote against it, but from what I've heard from the gallery and stuff like that tonight, and I'm sit here as a councillor, and I believe that I'm bound by the community to ask questions and to challenge the status quo on these things, and that's exactly what I want to do. And it's not so much around, as Councillor McDonald just said, my main questions are around things like bus access, walking accessibility, emergency vehicle egress, and the general slope of the site. Questions over the building side of it, not so much the environmental side of it. I actually went up there yesterday and today to have a look around, and I know from a environmental point of view, I was not very impressed with the area there at all. As people have said, the area looks like it's in a bit of a state of decay, and just rubbish strewn everywhere. It doesn't actually look like a really impressive site to me at all. The trees look fairly healthy, etc., which is all good, but my main concern though is the actual design and how this is going to be developed. So as I say, I'm actually going to be voting for this rescission motion, and I think it's something that, as I say, as a councillor, we should put forward and work on. So I'll be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for the director, if I may.
He's on his way.
He's just moving up.
Yep, I can see. Thank you. I was just curious about if this is rescinded and the changes are made, and I also am concerned about the lack of access from those lower blocks to the parkland that's next door. I'm more concerned about that than I am about the trees. If that had to change, and if what Mr. Jones suggested in relation to the donating that block with the affected trees on it to council, what length of time would it take for that to happen? So I'm talking a affordable housing context here, because these blocks are something that are going to be a bit more affordable. So if those things were done or recommended, and even if the developer was on side with it, how long would that add to this process?
You, Mr. Mayor, just looking at deadlines of council reports, have about 10 days before the next deadline for the next council report, putting it to the next PDC meeting, would back potentially up to, if they were really quick, getting back within the 10 days, we might be able to get to the next meeting, but it's more likely that it would be longer than that by the time they modified plans. So you could potentially, even if they accepted if council were to ask them to redesign, talking 2 months of delay.
2 months of delay. So that's if they were agreeable, it would be 2 months. If they weren't, it could drag on and on. Yeah, or what's
Yes, that's correct, councillor. If they are slow getting us back a set of plans, that would certainly delay the matter further, or they make a decision to stay with their current plans.
Okay, and do we know how likely that is? How easy are they to work with?
We've been working with them since July of last year, trying to get the design tweaked around, taking into considerations matters such as the vegetation plus the slope and access, garbage services, that type of thing. So they've done a few changes over that almost, 10 months. So just have to ask them again.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak in favour of the rescission motion. I think everyone's already covered quite a few issues raised with the development itself, so I'll touch on probably a bit of a follow-on from Councillor Kinghorn's point, making the assumption that the park or the affected area is handed over to council. I'm just interested to know what per annual upkeep do we expect for that sort of area, assuming it becomes a park. How much is it going to take us per annum to upkeep it? And I probably want to see it used as an asset. If the view and whatnot is that important and special, how can we then leverage that, assuming it becomes ours?
I think that's a question for you, Mr. Hodges.
Wanda.
Just the upkeep will be fine.
Before we move into the upkeep costs, there's still the option of the land converting into or being retained in private ownership to trees, similar to what's been done down on the northern side of the blocks or down the hill. So just because there's trees on a block doesn't mean it gets converted over to a council park that we have to maintain. So the question will be for the developer is there scope to for the lot layout to allow housing to be positioned around the trees. It's probably your first port of call. Looking at whether or not you could do a park there, the land to the south, whilst being open, is actually owned by the Department of Housing. That's where the easement is for the large power line going. So it's not a council strip. Land to the east of that is, but the land directly behind it, it's to our council. So it's kind of a bit isolated. So I'd probably recommend that you consider it as, or with the developer, considering it as retaining those in private ownership. Have to take that in relation to the fees, or the costs rather, of maintaining that land on notice. We do have a general figure, but not just off the top of our heads.
Cross that bridge when we come to it.
Any other speakers? I'll speak. Is anyone else speaking? You're going to close the debate after? Yeah. I'm going to speak against the rescission motion. I've been up there a couple of times and I've had a look at the proposed development. I know a lot of people are saying it's not about the housing, and I personally, just Jason Hamling, think we need some more housing, especially some affordable housing, if that's what it's going to be. And I think that I'm happy with what the council staff gave to me last meeting. So I will be speaking against, I'll be voting against the rescission motion. Thank you. Question?
Through you to the director. Is any of this actually affordable housing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's not identified under the State Environmental Planning Policy as being the specific. So,
leaning that way at all?
I think
there's no indication. If you're to get approval for that, that has other restrictions come on it for a period of 10 years. Has to be affordable, so it's not being proposed that. So it's often the conflict or the misunderstanding between definitions. what is being discussed there is housing affordability because the blocks are a bit smaller.
Yeah.
So that will be more so the case rather than affordable housing, which is everything from your social housing through to the medium income levels of housing. So a little bit different, but
Thanks. Any other speakers? Do you want to close the debate, Councillor Mallard?
Yep.
Or you don't have to. Do you want to put it? It's up to you.
No, I'm happy to close the debate.
Yeah.
Thanks, and thanks everyone who has made a contribution in the debate. I appreciate the views we've heard from councillors. I do want to talk to Councillor Witten's comments a bit. Firstly, yes, we have to take in good faith the information we get from the staff, but this comes to council for a decision, and we're elected to make those decisions, and we should take that seriously. But we also should be prepared to exercise our own judgment in making those decisions. And we're fortunate compared to...
Point of order. Came to council, 11-3 vote, very unprofessional. What it looks to the community...
That's not a point of order.
Looks to the community
Let him finish.
that we haven't... These councillors have not read their papers.
Councillor Wynne, thank you. Councillor Mallard.
Looks to the community, very unprofessional.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, look, I think, and in terms of the concerns about developers taking us to court, I absolutely am aware of risks that a council can face. But I do think, we have the capacity to attempt to work with developers and to attempt to negotiate better outcomes in terms of design. I think that's really important. And I think it's a legacy that this council can have in terms of the way we approach things, that we say, yes, we want housing, but we want good housing for our community to have a livable City of Orange. I thank Councillor Floyd for coming around. I did want to make a comment as well on, yes, the state of the site is not good, and that's one of the things I want to note. It's a privately owned site already. It's them that's going to make the money out of it. That's another issue I have with the argument that because it's low quality, because it's been allowed to have weeds go in the understory, that it's okay to get rid of it. We should actually be asking, why aren't landholders upholding their duty to control weeds on sites like that? In terms of Councillor Evans' comments about the cost of upkeep, if it was to be transferred and things like that, as I noted, I think this is sort of a prime site for community to take ownership of, whether through land care group or some other form of community group to do the sort of regeneration work that could be used. And to your comments, Mr. Mayor, I hope nobody in this chamber would dispute that I care a lot about housing and affordable housing. I agree with you that we need more housing. I know you weren't criticising me.
No dispute. Okay. I didn't point a finger at anyone and say that, Councillor Mallard.
No, absolutely. I'm not. I didn't intend to debate it with you or imply that that's what you said. But I want to emphasise that I do very much value the importance of housing affordability and affordable housing. As Councillor McDonald's questions went to, this is a private developer, privately owned land. There is no reason to think that any of this is going to be actual affordable housing. It is going to be housing that goes into the private market. It may be more affordable because, frankly, first of all, it's smaller land and density, but if it's badly designed, then that's going to contribute to making it cost less. So I want to just conclude just by saying, I really do hope that we look at what we can do through negotiation on these things. But even if the rescission motion isn't successful, I want to continue emphasising the importance of getting our urban design right, of getting the livability, the access to green space, the access to public transport. And we're going to have opportunities to make sure we get this right. If people think we can't approve it now because the staff have said it complies with the current rules, We need better rules. We're going to have a development control plan review coming through. We're going to have an urban forest strategy coming through. It's going to be really important to get those things right. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. I'll put the rescission motion. All in favour of the rescission motion, raise your hand.
Leave them up if you would, thanks.
Against?
Five. 6-5.
So the rescission motion wins.
That's all correct.
And now we need a motion, correct?
Correct. So the DA is now undetermined, shall we say.
I'll move an instrument of approval. Moving an instrument of approval for the DA.
In the vacuum of undetermination, Councillor Whitten has asked staff to bring forward a instrument of approval, which we would do to the next meeting, but it would essentially be bringing the previous report back. And Councillor Amy Greenhouse has seconded that motion. So that's the current motion afoot.
Any speakers?
I'll speak against it.
Yes. Thank you. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. I'll move an amendment that Council defers consideration of this application in order to work with the developer on an amended proposal that addresses concerns about compliance with the planning outcomes. If I can get a seconder.
Seconder, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Maletta.
Yeah, I'd like to make if the council would consider a slight amendment to the motion forward, that the
this is for the amendment.
Amend Councillor Mallard's, yep.
That the matter be deferred for not more than 1 month to allow council those discussions.
I guess my question, and maybe the director is the person to answer it, is if 1 month passes and there are negotiations ongoing, but they're not finalised, what happens?
I'm assuming we're going to get a response fairly quickly as to their appetite to consider what our changes would be.
Yeah, and I don't want undue delay, but yeah, what if there's talking, but there's not final?
Let's talk about a month. Okay, let's talk about waking up in the morning on Wednesday, the 7th of June. A month would take us to, say, Wednesday, the 7th of July or equivalent. Now, it would be Wednesday, the 5th of July. The night before that is a council meeting. I tell you what we would do as staff. We would just be able to make the council meeting of Tuesday the 18th. Now, if the developer has said, no, we're not interested in redesign, we would merely put the previous report back and then you would determine it. If they were interested in redesign, I'm sure if they're interested in redesign, they'll take the time and the time will be the time to redesign it. The 1 month, you know, we might not be able to bring a revised design back in your 1 month but they'll be happy to do it. So it kind of constricts us a bit.
How about if it reads that the council meet with in the month?
Yep. You happy with that, Councillor Mallard?
Yeah, if it's just to initiate things within the month, absolutely fine.
Read into it.
Okay, speakers. You're speaking?
Yes, I'm speaking, Mr. Mayor.
For the motion?
Speaking for the motion that I put. Mr. Mayor, I put forward the motion based on the fact that council staff have given this council a few weeks ago a report of approval, which all of the councillors had access to the report, and I'm conscious that 3 of those councillors voted against it. But the remainder of the council voted for the motion. And in doing so with full knowledge of what was in that development application and report. I believe personally it's very unprofessional from a council's perspective that here we have developers who are
Point
companies.
of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Mlatter.
I mean, it's okay to say that we're unprofessional. I've a person who has come along here tonight with an open mind. Council has come along here with an open mind to consider further information which has been provided to me. It is my right to change my mind should I wish to do
Please
so.
retract
So I
that.
take offence to the fact.
I'm talking about the council as a whole, Councillor Miletta, not an individual.
I didn't interpret it that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We had a chance to defer it, to refuse it. We didn't do so. We approved it, and now we have a rescission. And yes, it's given us more information to go back, and we've pointed out all the problems that we should have pointed out in the first place. But certainly, the staff have they've based their approval based on the merits of the application, on planning law, and as they always do. And as councillors, like Councillor Mallard said, we have a duty as councillors to fulfil our roles. And all I would suggest is that it doesn't look good when we've approved it and now we're going to knock it back. Well, we're going to defer it. Anyway, that's my opinion. It just doesn't look professional.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Any other speakers on the motion? Are you going to speak against the motion? Using me, David.
Now we need to get speakers on the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I like Councillor Miletta. Look, I take a little bit of umbrage at the situation that professional. There is plenty of examples in recent history of rescission motions where they've been lodged and then they've got up, and the councillors who voted for the motion previously have changed their mind. So I don't think it's really an apt example. I really don't understand why we can't just delay this a little bit, because the residents who live here, whether they're renters or homeowners, are going to be there for some time. We have a duty to the community to ensure that we are approving developments which enhance livability, and this is the opportunity to do that.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking for the motion. I still trust in the original decision that I made, and I'm happy to stand my ground with that. However, moving forward, I think we've learnt a lot from this. Like, I think we need to get better at doing site inspections and questioning these things in a more timely manner. Like, in hindsight, we probably should have deferred it.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are you speaking for?
I'm speaking for the amendment.
For the amendment. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the right of this amazing country that we have the right to change our minds. Even tonight's vote, initially for the amendment, there was 3 against. For the motion, there was 3 against, and then listen to the community, Mr. Mayor, is something that I've had the privilege of actually always doing, and right through this week, having people contact me and then hearing the speakers. It's about us listening. We are voted by the people for the people. And this one here is something that I really feel that, I did vote initially against the motion, and then the rescission order came up. But it's just something that it's a human right to say, I've changed my mind. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. There being no other... Oh, Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first time round with this...
Are you speaking for the motion or against the amendment? For the amendment?
Maybe for the amendment, if it's only for a month. I didn't go to site the first time because I was busy and tired and I just didn't get there. And when I saw that there was a rescission motion, first of all, I thought, really? Guys, you're lost. Suck it up. Move on. But I thought, okay, I'll go and have a look. So after work on Saturday, I went up there and I saw the palliative cockatoo and the trees and the corridor, and that was, fine. And I still thought, no, housing's more important. I was really concerned about the lack of access to the park. And I hadn't actually realised how important that was until I was there. So that's why I'm thinking a bit differently about it to the way I thought beforehand. My gut, I've been banging on about affordable housing the entire time, and whether or not it's theoretically affordable or not, they're small blocks and therefore they will be more affordable. But because they're small blocks, that's why they need access to the public space. So if this deferral is only for a month, then I'm actually happy to support the amendment and to see whether something's likely to be able to be improved within a month. If it's longer than that, then I will just prefer to go on the housing side of it. So at this stage, if the idea is that the developers will be spoken to quickly and possibly have a resolved situation quickly, then I'm happy to support the amendment.
Thank you. Well, I'll put the amendment first. All those in favour of the amendment? Against? The amendment becomes the motion. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Sorry, it does. I'm just making sure everyone's awake. The amendment becomes the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we'll move into, let me just get my bearings.
You're heading back to number 2 and then 3.
Number 2.
No, there's no mayoral minutes.
There's no mayoral minutes. I'll move on to item 3.1, minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 16th of May.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Whitten, second by Councillor Greenhalgh. Councillor Peterson.
Clarify one point from those minutes. On page 12, I'd asked a question referring to a pie chart that I remember was on page 116 about the cost of city council, that it was inferred in the meeting that it was 2% of the total council expenditure. The CFO was kind enough to clarify with me this week that it's actually more like a third of that, which I thought was much better.
Thank you. There being no other speakers, I'll put the minutes. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The council will now adjourn for the Planning and Development Policy Committee to be chaired by Councillor Whitten. Thank you, Councillor Whitten.
Ask Mr. Hodges to sit.
I'll move that in my office.
Coke here, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to open the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the 6th of June 2023. Time being, it's about just after 8:15. Section 1, does any councillor have any pecuniary interest? I know Councillor Powell has, and I know that Councillor Kinghorn does. I don't believe there are any other councillors with any pecuniary interests in this committee. Section 2, General Reports, 2.1, items approved under delegated authority.
Mr. Chair.
Recommendations on page 5. Councillor Hamling has moved. It's been seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion on this matter? No discussion? Francis, sorry, Councillor Kinghorn, no.
Oh, no, sorry.
Put the motion. All
Thinking.
those in favour? Against, carried. Item 2.2, planning proposal for 1220 Shirley Road. Recommendation is on page 13. Do I
Happy
have
to
a
move
mover
it.
and seconder? Been moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Floyd. Any discussion on this matter?
I just would like to make a comment that this is a great example of working with a developer to achieve a great outcome. So happy.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Peterson.
Wanted to commend for that outcome and thank the director for talking me through it today to help me understand the process.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion has been carried. The next item is item 2.3, Development Application DA 15 2023, 16 Platinum Parade. Recommendation is on 498.
Oh,
It's been
hang on.
moved by...
Somebody needs.
Sorry.
Sorry. I need to
Councillor
be.
Kinghorn's going to leave going to be disconnected.
Okay.
Even if you did vote, Councillor Kinghorn, we wouldn't see you. Gone. Councillor McDonald, did you move that? Yes. Okay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Greenhalgh. Any discussion on this item? No discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll get, yeah.
Why don't we do the ones that she's out for now?
We might leave her out. Oh, you just brought her back in. All right. Well,
In, out.
we won't upset her. We can handle it. We can chew gum and walk at the same time. I think we can anyway.
How about we just put her back in the closing thing, please, Kate? On hold, and we'll go to the others since she's not there. Still need to see her.
You want me to
go to...
We're going to skip 2.4. We're going to skip 4 and 6. Councillors, you with me? We're going to move. We're going to skip item 2.4 and 2.6 while Councillor Kinghorn is out of the chamber. We're going to deal with 2.5 and 2.7.
I'll move 2.5, Mr. Chair.
Development application 141 Rossi Drive. It's been moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion on this item? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We're moving on to 2.7 now. Development application DA 37, which is 3 Benview Avenue. Recommendation is on 906. I have a mover. It's been moved by Councillor Greenhalgh, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any next discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. We'll go back to 2.4 and invite Councillor Kinghorn back into the chamber. Oh, we're going to go on to the next one first. Council, right. The Councillor Powell is being removed. Willingly leaving the chamber. Yes, yeah, we're just waiting for the technology to.
I'd like to hook up.
Might not come back. Who's going to make a call? We'll make a call. You want me to wait, Mr. CEO? I think we should wait for him. We haven't got to be anywhere else, have we, audience?
Just makeup tutorials. That's all.
The bunker's making a call. Wait for the bunker.
You're just going to wing it on the night, aren't you?
No makeup. No makeup.
What was that? Heath Ledger in
Yeah, Batman.
I should decline. Make a call, Mr. Bunker. I'm going to adjourn for a few seconds. Satellite to spin around this part of the planet. I apologise, sir, but we're not. It's not part of the chamber process. Oh, okay. So you would like to know the number? My apologies, sir. Generally user error, mate. Technology's fine. I'm a technologist, mate. That's we always blame the users, right?
I'm from the man that nearly brought me
We used to have error codes. Hitting a keyboard. What was the problem? Person sitting it.
Like a hand for planning.
Those listening on live stream, we're just waiting for Councillor Kinghorn to reconnect. That's above my pay grade, mate. I can't. Probably we would relieve her out of the vote, I think. Yeah. Because we have, at the start how we vote to allow streaming. We'd have to. How do we? I think we'll move on. It's not Councillor Kinghorn's problem. How does it look? You're not there? Okay. All right. Technology. All right, councillors, we're going to now deal with item 2.4. Development application DA 192022 1012 Sharps Road. The recommendation is on page 550. Do I have a mover? That's been moved by Councillor Greenhalgh, seconded by Councillor Floyd. Sorry, Councillor Floyd, I've got some flags in front of me. Any discussion on this matter? Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question to the Director, just regarding the offsetting measures. Just curious to know what are the offsetting measures to compensate for the direct and indirect impacts of proposed development, and how far away from the development will they be implemented?
Under the biodiversity legislation for the state, once trigger is met, the developer has to contribute to the trust, which is the state government fund. Offsets that come out of that do not relate to, they can relate into the same region, but not necessarily close by that site, some distance away. Depends on where the trust eventually buys the credits from. They have to, the applicants have to buy the credits initially, but the government obtain them later on.
I think I did see there was 3 credits or something in there. It depends on the species of bird and the or the endangered species, and also the obviously the trees, and that. I would have liked to have heard more speakers from the Indigenous community who are putting this forward. Certainly, they've been quite vocal with regards to other developments. I would have liked to have known more from them about those endangered species and things like that.
The key part with this one is the proposal doesn't include the removal of the large remnant trees. It is the planted ones that have been identified. The BDAR, the Biodiversity Assessment Report that is coming with the application, has identified that as development goes, you'd expect around a house that not just the upper story of the big trees, it's also the grasses underneath it, which we've heard a lot tonight, identifying that natural loss of the understory would occur over time, and the loss of some of those native grasses to normal grasses of lawn. That's actually what triggers the need for those biodiversity offsets, is the smaller stuff on the ground. Part of the whole set of a woodland.
It would appear that the development complies with the planning principles, so I'll be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maletta. Councillor Kinghorn, can you hear us? I can see you're on mute. We can't see you on camera, but if you can indicate by speaking, take yourself off mute maybe.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. So if you wish to speak, Councillor Kinghorn, just hoy, give us a yell because we can't see you. And when we vote, if you could say aye or nay.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, if Councillor Kinghorn says yes, I would assume that. Okay, we're on item 2.4.
We're back. We're back. We can see you.
Back. Welcome back, Councillor Kinghorn. Item 2.4, we have a mover and a second for the motion. We're currently taking speakers for or against the motion. Any further speakers?
I'll speak to the
Councillor McDonald.
Look, this is a tricky one, having figuratively jumped up and down about Maremba Road. I absolutely understand where the concerns come from in terms of the maintaining the trees and the biodiversity there. I talked with the director and have done a site visit, reading the plans and everything. I'm satisfied that this is a compromise that I can live with supporting. It's not fantastic. It doesn't protect the entire area, but it is retaining the remnant trees. So I won't say it's been an easy decision, but definitely not a flippant one. So
thank you, Councillor McDonald. Yep. Councillor David, yes. Councillor Mallard, sorry, not David.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, similar to Councillor McDonald, this is one that I've looked at very closely. I do want to acknowledge that it's one where the developer and the staff have gone back and forth. There has been repeated redesign. There has been multiple exhibitions of this. So it's an example of, I think, the kind of work we need, particularly in these sorts of environmentally sensitive proposals, that we need to see that sort of work at making sure the design, as much as possible, avoids damage, ideally, mitigates it where it can, and has plans to do remediation wherever there is going to be harm. So yeah, I think it's a tricky one in those areas. I do acknowledge as well that it is going to be community housing developed, which is a really important social benefit coming out of it. So yeah, it's been a challenging one. I have noted all of the input. Appreciate the information we've had in the open forum, as well as the written submissions. But yeah, I do think it's a proposal where staff have worked with it to minimise the impacts that are going to come out of it, and also the arrangements in terms of the offsets, which I do, as I think I've raised in some council discussions recently. There are concerns around biodiversity offsets and the integrity of them. So hopefully we can make sure we're getting robust outcomes on those. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Any further speakers at all? Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to think about the point. It's more of a question. I note on page 571 that council acknowledges that we've actually planted a lot of the understory there. I'm just hoping that we're not. Are we in the habit of planting and spending money on trees and then selling it off to then rip it up? Because that sort of seems like a bit of a waste of money to me at whatever point we've planted those.
I suppose, Councillor Evans, it's what we do on the day at the time, and then in the future things change, right?
Fair
It
enough.
was a corridor that was put in place many years ago as a buffer because the original distributor road, northern distributor, was going to go to the south.
It's not a recent thing that this has happened.
No. So that whole line of trees put in as a buffer to protect from noise. Yeah, yeah. So, but then things change in the future, so we have to sort of be flexible, I suppose. Is that a fair comment, Mr. Director?
I think so, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure of the exact history of this allotment. It is privately owned now, so sure how it got into private hands, but it's relation to we normally only plant on our own land.
I'm going to speak. I'm going to speak for the motion. I just got a couple of questions. I'm silly. I might be. I'll put my hand up. The trees that were in the last development, are they the same trees that are in this development? Same. Are they? What are they called?
Species.
Species. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. The revegetated ones are a mixture. There are 3 different types of gums up on the apple box, Lakely red gum, yellow box on the other side. So there may be some mixed amongst the regenerated trees because they are species that we often plant in the in revegged areas, like normally native around this area.
I've got a couple of questions. So how old would be the ones that are being removed from this area?
Mr. Chair, they're identified about being up to 30 years old.
Thank you. And just for the where the Southern Feeder Road is going down, these houses will back onto the feeder road?
Yeah, they'll be above the feeder road because the road starts to go into a cutting just after Anson Street.
My concern is noise. We don't. Will there be? I know for the northern distributor between Clergate Road and McDonald's, there's that big fence. Will we have to do that sort of sound mitigation and all that sort of thing? Or because the Southern Feeder Road is being done right now, there won't be any come back to us to do anything like that?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, sorry, the application came with a noise assessment to consider the application in terms of the road noise policy for New South Wales. It identified with the difference in topography between the sites, there was minimal protection that was needed. So mostly a boundary fence would take enough noise out. So on that it was minor, but it wouldn't be at the cost of council.
Okay, that's my next question. Thank you. I'm done.
Any further speakers, questions? There being none, I'm going to put the motion. I'll just check with Councillor Kinghorn.
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Mr. CEO, could you relay the numbers to the gentleman that you've done that? Thank you. Okay, we'll grab Mr. Councillor Powell. What are we up to now, Mark? 7, 27, 26, 26, 26. Okay. All right, Councillor Powell has returned to the chamber. I think we have a full contingent of players on the field. All right, we move on now to item 2.6, which is development application DA1, the Orange Post Office.
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
Maybe a second.
It's been moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Miletto. Any discussion on this item?
I just think, there's been a bit of toing and throwing about this, and, the New South Wales Heritage Office has been involved. This is a bit of a coup for Orange. This is the first one in Australia that Australia Post is dipping its toes into the water. So to come to a sensible planning outcome is fantastic. There was no submissions against it. We'll see how they go and see if there's many more of these to pop up around Australia, and we can be the guinea pig.
I like guinea pigs.
Test case. I was going to say proof of concept is probably
proof
better.
of concept. Sorry,
proof of concept. Yeah, not guinea pig. Yeah, Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's an exciting development, and Mr. Mayor's pinched the word I was going to use. But
guinea pig.
Conversations the business chambers even had with Australia Post, just development and what they plan to do with the building is quite exciting. I think it's going to be an asset in our CBD that's going to be well used by both businesses and consumers. And there's even, I believe, spaces for micro businesses to go in there and test the water. So I think it's be a really good asset for us moving forward.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Look, I'll agree and concur with the Mayor and Councillor Evans. We know that the asset of the post office has been a major asset and central point, meeting point for Orange since its beginnings. So if you were to pick out 3 buildings in Orange that are the main buildings, it would have been the post office, the town hall, and courthouse, right? So it's great that Australia Post are taking an interest in one of our heritage icons of the city, and we applaud them for doing that. So all those in favour of the motion? Against? The motion is carried. And I think I've done the 1%ers club. It's like being on the 1%ers tonight. Good question. So thank you, councillors. That concludes the Planning and Development Committee meeting. And it's around 10 minutes past 8. And I call upon Councillor Evans to conduct the Structure and Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I'll open the Infrastructure Policy Committee for the 6th of June, the time being 7 past 8. Any conflicts of interest coming from the business paper tonight? I don't think there were any. Moving to item 2.1, recommendation is on page 5, the current works report. Can I have a mover for the current works? Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Second by Councillor Mallard. That's any discussion on the current works?
I do just have a question through you, Mr. Chair, probably to the Director. Look, I've just had a report today, and I haven't had time to pop up there. On Platinum Parade, just regarding footpaths, Platinum Parade, William Maker Drive, a strip of new that's sort of essentially, but apparently recently it's been dug up or removed. Are you aware of that, or?
Yeah, not aware of that, and I'll take it on notice. There has been quite a bit of movement around the NBN rollout as well. Okay. It may be something associated with that, but I'll take it on notice and give you.
That it wasn't. It was barely 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you.
The comments, Councillor Whitten.
Question through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Director. Before he runs off. Occurring along Forest Road and heading Arcadia Road. It's probably, I know it's nothing to do with council, but I'm getting a lot of questions. Do we know what that works is for, Mr. Director?
I believe it is associated with NBN rollout or communications of some sort. I'll give you some further information enclosed, if I may.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Hamling.
Yeah, I just want to go on about the roundabout work that we're doing on the corner of
Clinton and Dalton.
That's the one. In the report, it talks about vandalism to our equipment. Can you just? I'm a bit appalled about this, and I just want to know the extent of the vandalism that occurred.
Approximately $70,000 worth of damage was done to our plant and equipment. Every window in every item of plant, the 3 items of plant that were stored there, were so the excavator, the grader, and the roller were all damaged. So they were all broken out. They've all been brought back in, cleaned, and replaced.
So, with that, do we
We've got CCTV cameras up in place now as well as part of that.
And I suppose we're
Don't
also
generally do it as a rule. Yeah.
urging any residents that seen anything, hear anything, could they come
Absolutely.
forward? Because that's a lot of money.
Is we're not the only ones that have been struck. So some of the private developments have also been hit with damages up to and including $1 million is what's been anecdotally reported through.
Director. Councillor Pearson, you had a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to on page 13 about the Blackman Swamp stormwater harvesting. Wanted to know if there's anything councillors or council can do for advocacy regarding this, or is there a process going on at the moment? They've got to finish the process first.
Yeah, absolutely. In the last week of May, we were given the opportunity to respond, and we've got to the end of June to respond. I believe our response is, because it's most of the items that were brought up this time round were the same items that were brought up last time round and against it. So we had to prepare a response at that time. We're just going through for completeness to make sure that we don't miss anything. And I'll be reviewing our reply later this week. There is a process in hand. There's no need for advocacy work on behalf of councillors at this point in time. But if we need to pursue that way, I'll certainly let you all know. Thank you.
Councillor Miletto.
Rising, Mr. Chair. I've just had a couple of phone calls, Mr. Director, regarding the section of roadway from the airport to Spring Hill Road there. I can't think of what it's called, whether that's Forest Road or...
Forest Road?
Yeah. And the question was, there's obviously a lot of cyclists that section of roadway, and they tell me that it's near impossible to miss potholes in such a poor state. I'm just wondering whether there are any plans from council, whether there's any funding available, or if you're able to provide an update as to are we going to improve that section of roadway, because there is some positive feedback about the rest of the road, but it's just that section there appears to be in really poor condition.
Yeah, there's a couple of sections across council that are in very poor condition. We will be doing some works in front of the airport there shortly, but it won't be the full stretch through. And in the meantime, we'll continue to maintain the road surface by patching any potholes that do occur.
Thank you. So there's no indication of when that section which I'm referring to may be upgraded then, apart from having patchwork done?
We're reviewing some of the state's funding that's been announced recently, as far as the so the Labor government have also allocated a certain amount of money for pothole patching, or that thing, and whether we can extend that to a stabilisation process, or whether it's still just for the patching as such. But we're looking at the rules around that new round of funding and seeing whether there's any betterment that we can do.
Are you aware of how long that section of roadway is I'm referring to?
Absolutely.
How long is it?
I've travelled it. It's a couple of...
I don't know. It wasn't
Sorry.
a trick question.
Just yes and no, mate. Yeah.
Metres it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
In question time, Mr. Chair.
Hang on,
May I-
Councillor Floyd, if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Floyd.
That's all right.
I don't want to
Yeah.
pick on the mafia.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, just on page 6 there, I'd just like to send a shout out. As you can see, our leaf collection crew there, as well as all the crews in the council, I have the utmost respect for the work they do. But I tell you what, these guys,
You're a good man.
These guys over the next 2 months, I'd just like to send a shout out to them, because they are going to be absolutely working like Trojans. So go the leaf collection crew.
You, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor
Thank you.
Whitten.
Airport. I've noticed the last few days there's a C-130 that's doing touch and goes, which is fantastic, by the way. Do they pay for that landing and takeoff?
They do.
Mr. Director?
So that's been it's one of the things that our airport manager out there, Justin Bannon, has been pursuing actively, is ties in with Defence, and so for some of their training they do some touch and go type activities, and not just with the C-130 but with other other defence aircraft as well.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Current works report. Councillor King, on you good? Yep.
I'm good.
A question for myself. Just our airport passenger numbers. I noticed back in March we're pushing nearly 9,000 people through the airport. It's really starting to be tremendous numbers, and I'm assuming is going to grow. And I'm wondering if maybe enclosed, because it might be of commercial interest, we might get a breakdown of which routes those numbers are predominantly coming from, whether it be Melbourne, Sydney or Brisbane.
I can certainly say that the majority of traffic is between Sydney and Orange, because we have 2 RPT operators that travel that route, and they do a number of services per day. But certainly our Sydney and Melbourne traffic also helps add to those numbers, and we're for the financial year we're certainly targeting just over 90,000 passengers through there. Whereas when I first came here 5 years ago, we were around 56,000 passengers. So it's a tremendous growth over that period, and I think it's well supported by having a second operator travelling that Sydney route.
Yep, thank you. And just on the airport matters, the councillors will remember the passing of Max Hazleton not too long ago. Just thought I'd mention that Friday the 16th of June there'll be his public memorial service out at the Aerodrome. I think it starts about 10:30 if anyone was interested in attending from council. But that being said, I'll put the motion for current works report. All in favour? Thank you. And I'll pass on to Councillor Greenhouse to do sports and rec. I'll close the meeting at 8:15. Thank you.
Councillor Evans, I'd like to open the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting on the 6th of June 2023 with the time being 8:17. So I'll move on to item 1.1. There was no declarations of interest. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'll move on to item 2.1, minutes of the Australia Day Committee meeting held on the 26th of April 2023.
Move that.
Perfect. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Power. Is there any discussion on this item? Thank you. I'll put the motion. All for? Unanimous. Item 2.2, minutes of the Sport and Recreation Community Committee meeting held on the 10th of May. There is a recommendation on page 37. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Floyd and Councillor Evans. Any discussion on this matter? Councillor Peterson?
I need to say on page 47, there's the monthly Orange Sporting Precinct report. Grateful to the director for having a chat earlier today that we'll pass that report on to the various groups that might be interested, like Little Athletics and the like, so they can keep an update on the developments.
Yep. Any other discussion?
A question through you, Madam Chair. Not sure, I suppose not in infrastructure, but I'll ask it here in the sporting and rec. How are we going with the stadium? It looks like they're starting to get quite a bit done. So,
Director Maunda.
More, yeah.
Precinct.
Sorry. What did I call it? The stadium.
Gladys.
We're going to call it the South Sydney Stadium, Rabbitohs Stadium.
Gladys.
Through you, Madam Chair, the question was how are we going with the stadium?
Yeah, it looks good. Like they're starting to get, yeah.
Sorry. So overall, we're still finalising the design for the 2 stadiums. So we had our 4th round of consultation with sporting groups last week. So we've incorporated the needs, we believe the needs of all the different groups in Orange that might use the facility, and also the needs of national groups to enable us to hold national level competition, so NRL, rugby union, A-League, etc. The athletics facility is being built to an International Athletics Federation Level 2 standard, which means it will be accredited for national competition, but would not be able to hold Common Games, for example, international competition. So times would stand for national championships, but not international championships. Doesn't preclude you from having them there, but those events typically are held in larger centres. We're probably, depending on weather conditions and rain, and we're probably about end of mid to end August to complete all the initial groundworks and drainage, which is about $8.5 million worth of works out there, which is all the soil, and then we'll move on to the construction on the multi-purpose fields. They'll pretty much roll straight into that. The designs for the two stadiums and associated infrastructure will need to come back to council as a DA for your consideration, and will then be referred through to the planning panel for their consideration. So that's our approach, and then we'll put those to tender and look to start constructing those towards the end of this year. The main stadium's about an 18-month build. Athletics is about 12 months. So we're trying to hit a pour date for the track, for the athletics track, of early next year. We do that in warmer months. If we miss that date, then it wouldn't be until the end of next year until we could pour the track, for example.
Thank you. Let's not miss that date.
Thank you, Director Maunda.
With a question.
Certainly.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair. Just with regards to Jack Brabham and the drain which has been put dividing the east and west side, are you able to indicate when a section of that may be open where people can just walk from one side of from east to west of Jack Brabham rather than have to walk a long way around Harley Road?
Those works are almost completed in that area, so we'll look to open some access through there, which we should be able to do without too much difficulty. Still need to do, as you're aware, the remediation works to that area. So we'll work around that, but providing access, because it will no longer be a construction zone, do that as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I just say quick? It was interesting down at the conference last week with Councillor Miletto and what was it? Oh, Councillor Power. There was a section on tourism and footy and food, and where we had a speaker up from Mudgee. Went through all their construction. It was just interesting to hear, and I jotted down some notes. So hopefully we can get going with this and get some negotiations happening, and not just for rugby league, for all sports, and not. And the other thing, we're building a sports precinct, but it's also a parklands precinct. So there's going to be a lot of passive recreation through there. There's, I'm quite excited to see the end product when it is finished. So let's hope we don't miss that athletic track pour date. A long time in between.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Maunda. I'd just like to thank Scott and his team, Roxanne. They were very, very accommodating when I requested to go out, and it was great to walk around with the civils guys for about an hour and a half and have a great look around what's actually happening out there. I was also involved in the talks with the community groups through my football affiliation. And I guess one of the disappointing things is, and it must be very frustrating for our council staff, is when we put these talks on for the different types of sporting groups, is to have no one turn up to some sessions. So from my point of view, that's very disappointing that, people can't take the time out. If they're not going to take part in the consultation, it's disappointing when they come and say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. So I just encourage our community to be a part of this journey and, to take on board when we put these things out there, to try and have a representative from your club attend. So that makes our job so much easier in making sure we get this right. Thank you, Scott. Has anyone else got any discussion? Okay, I'll put the motion. Everyone in favour? Unanimous.
I just have a matter arising, just to remind, you can sit down, Scott, just to remind people that we do have the state under-13 rugby union championships in Orange this weekend. So that's up at Waratahs. There's going to be, as I said, it's the state, so we've got teams from Sydney coming up. So if you want to go and have a look at some top-class junior rugby union, you can do it in Orange. You can go out to Waratahs and have a look. It's amazing when you see the size of some of these kids that are under 13s. They look like first graders. Game where they drop the ball. No, that's the game that hopefully we win the World Cup, but I'm not going to put any money on that. But anyway.
I will be attending that on behalf of you, Mr. Mayor, and you know that's not my code, but I will be watching it and I will be very enthusiastic about it.
Thank you. It is.
So thank you, councillors. That concludes the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting, with the time now being 8:25. And I'll now call on Mr. Mayor to do finance on behalf of Councillor Duffy.
They're allowed to have 15. Allowed to have 15.
I'll open the Finance Policy Committee meeting at 8:30. There's no declarations of interest.
Do you not have one yourself, sir?
Yeah, sorry, in item 2.1. 2.3, is that correct?
I think it was 2.3.
It's 2.3.
Yeah, 2.3. Sorry about that. Yeah, I've got one of myself. So item 2.1, general reports. The mover. Moved by Councillor Floyd, second by Councillor Power. Any discussion?
I suppose I've just got a bit of a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director. I'm just after a bit of an example. Recommendation at point 4. Give me an example of what these sorts of things would be.
Okay, so point 4 on the recommendation, delegate authority to the CEO for regular prize giving, in-kind donations. So an example of that is we have awards that we give to Year 12 students for all of our high schools in Orange. Generally, we only have 1 or 2 schools that actually apply for that $500 funding. And so what we're recommending here is that Council gives the delegation to the CEO to actually contact all of our high schools, provide them with the opportunity of accepting the $500 award, and then the mayor or one of our councillors would be representing us in giving that award. Instead of waiting for people to apply, it gives the delegation to go out and invite them to take that award. We'd also put in this point number 4, even anything under delegation to the CEO would still come back to council as a report. So even though the delegation's given, we would report back exactly where that money went. There's a couple of categories. So
I don't trust you, Mr.
So in-kind donations, they don't tend to go any higher than the category maximum value, which is $2,500. If it went higher than the category, we would have to bring that to council for the prize giving is $500. We also have the sporting in kind. That can vary, but it's within that limit amount of $16,500. And the scholarship to CSU, they're $1,200 each, and that's 10 of those scholarships. So in summary, smallest amount is $500. The highest would be $2,500 within that cap. Much we can give under the small donation.
And as you said, I don't know what's left in the kitty.
That's right. And we've just found that some of these donations that have been identified by council haven't been given away because some of those recipients have just not applied for them. A chance to be a little bit more proactive unless council decides they'd like to,
Any other speakers? Councillor Peterson.
Speak in favour of the recommendations. Grateful for the time and effort put into compiling the list. I do have 5 questions, so I might just go through one at a time. I'll make it quicker. So on point 1, very grateful for the funding increase to, but I'm just a bit surprised by its source. Is there any other standing annual $20,000 grant to a sporting body or similar to Spare Orange that we might discuss in future?
We went through this with a fine-tooth comb. We haven't been able to find another one under these grants programs. However, I don't want to say never, but not that we have been able to identify as yet, except for that 20,000. And the reason for that 20,000 was a legacy funding, and then that event stopped. So the funding remained in the budget, but wasn't reallocated until now.
Second question is, how do we keep track of the year-to-year spend for a particular group? And I just like to see this program spread over many groups. Notice that $47,000 over 3 years to Uniting Church doesn't seem to be a small donation. That seems to be a large council project that we probably need to address outside of this program. I didn't think that external cap or some sort of rule against multiple donations would be a good idea, because we probably just want to break it. But I wondered if in the documentation we could put an intention in that we hope to spread this over many groups and not just be an annual budget top up for the same groups. Maybe an intention of basically a spirit of the game approach might sway some of the people that were applying for the project, so bear that in mind.
I'm very happy to take that on board. We think that's a great idea and can be part of that application process and dialogue with applicants, so that we do have that opportunity for more groups to have access to these. We take it on board.
On page 15, when we're doing grant application and dictate their contribution, I think volunteer hours is one thing to note. I just wondered if that was recognised at the $25 an hour as per the Sport Facility Partnership as a way that they can financially they're making.
Absolutely, we can give some guidance. We do have a volunteer contribution category in the application with the dollar amount, but we could give some guidance around, hourly rate at suggested $25 an hour, so we get a more accurate figure. So happy to take that one on board as well.
I'll skip one because it's actually boring, but the last one on page 26. Oh no, that question actually. No. But I just wanted to ask a question about the $12,000 set aside for residents who are a graduate certificate in community leadership and resilience scholarship at CSU. And when I read that, I just thought of all the different education support that we could offer. Why that in particular? It seems very specific, I suppose, and rise of council's interest. Do we get a discount because we're doing so many? Or
my understanding this was part of the CSU program around micro-credentials, which was offered to councils as part of a partnership scholarship program, and hence why we decided to take that on board. However, very happy to take on board comments about is there other opportunities. My understanding in the acceptance of those scholarships has been quite low.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
I'd just like to move an amendment if I could. I'd like to make a further point that 5% of our total allocation go towards All Abilities sports. I think recently attending an All Abilities meeting with facilitator and local sporting groups throughout our community, there is a massive need for All Abilities sports.
We got a seconder? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. And I just think if we committed a certain amount to it a year, 5% or, $2,500, whatever the amount may be, it might encourage sporting groups like Bloomfield Juniors or the Can-Dos from softball to be able to facilitate these events on a more regular basis. That was the consensus that we came to at the meeting, was that a day here once a year isn't suffice in our community, and that we should be looking to conduct more events on a more regular basis. And, whether that be a few of the sporting committees come together and, potentially use the pavilion at the showground or whatever to host, a series of different stations or whatever that may look like. I'm not sure at the moment, but I think it's certainly something we should be encouraging in our community. And I think having a set amount aside to encourage sporting groups and committees to come forward and look to do that would certainly be something that would be welcomed in our community.
Councillor Greenhouse, just before we go on, are you clear on what Councillor Greenhouse is?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So would I be right to say on page 6, you might be, an easier way you might be asking for a 5th point to be added to Councillor Floyd/Powers' motion, which would, was it that 5% of all sporting grants be applied to all abilities events?
Or 5% of the total amount.
Total amount of sporting grant, is it?
Well, the total amount we're going for is 84,000, correct?
Okay, so the total 5% of the total amount of the small donations program.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I
Hold on,
just...
sorry, does small donations include sport?
I can make a clarification point about, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair. So we have 2 sporting funds, which are the Sport Participation Program and then also funding under the Sports Facilitation Partnership Program. The participation program is about facilitating representation of sporting sports people and helping them to be represented in their sport. And the other one is actually about a partnership program in regards to funding upgrades to facilities. So those are 2 current sporting programs. Could potentially do that in the sports participation program and broaden that. I think that might be, and I'll actually ask Scott, sorry?
Just want to know what 5%
do you think that we could put it in that first one, add to that? Or additionally, we have another category in the grants and donations.
Hang on.
5th point will be, with permission of power, to get 5% of something to be applied to all ability sports. The question,
even if it was easier to amend it to a dollar amount of like 2,500.
why don't we do that?
It's a starting point.
Why don't we do that? Okay.
Hang on. I reckon order.
A dollar amount sounds very, very simple.
The criteria that we require for the submission of grants is quite onerous. I understand where you're going, Councillor. Maybe it's possible if we agreed on an amount with the different groups that we could. So, like the schools, we give each school X amount. There you go. That's what you get.
Would you like to defer that and bring it back? And
we could come up with some
something?
options around that. So, because we could set aside some money and then never get an application. Is my concern. Rather go, can do's, here you go, here's your X, or what other sporting groups there might be. And that still doesn't preclude individual athletes because there's no differentiation between abilities and all abilities. Fighting those other grants. So if you represent the state or the region or chosen sport, then that assistance is also available to you. That's the only criteria.
Okay.
So just a thought, that was all.
Thank you. So, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, then have a matter arising that we'll come back with a report on that issue. Director Maunda, the motion stands at 4 items. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Miletto? No? Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 2.2, Event Sponsorship Program.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
I would like to make a comment.
We're on item 2.2. I just want to make it very clear that this first item is about the Newcrest Challenge. I was just reading the report. This is the Newcrest Bicycle Ride. It doesn't appear in the report for quite a few pages. You'll recall this 170 kilometre ride, and it's organised by Bicycle Network. Last time they held this ride before COVID, they had I think it was 1,500 riders. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Just before we go on, Councillor Floyd probably wants...
Yeah, just a matter arising there. Just
Newcrest
wanted to know that Newcrest is actually my employer. Would I be fine to stay in to vote on this, or?
I would have thought so. I don't think there's a conflict with that. No.
That's what I thought.
Separate issue. Yeah.
Okay, can I have a mover?
I would like to move recommendation point 1, please, that we sponsor the event. Got to pick one of those options. I would like to move that we do.
Seconder. We've got a mover and a seconder. Second by Councillor Evans. Any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. I will step out while Councillor McDonald steps in and she can avoid.
Yeah, 2.3.
2.3, yep.
Mayor's leaving the room as it concerns Orange High School.
Alrighty, item 2.3, small donations and grants program applications.
Happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Thank you, Councillor Witten. Any discussion on the item? Alrighty, all those in favour, raise an arm. Fantastic. All right, thank you, councillors. That concludes the finance policy, and I call on myself for services policy. Self, here I am. I said to myself, self, I said. All right, I'll open the services policy committee meeting at 8:41. Any declarations of interest from any councillors? Excellent. All right. Item 2.1, minutes of the NAIDOC Community Committee meeting of the 6th of April. Page 5 has the recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Witten. Seconded. Councillor Greenhalgh, thank you. Any discussion? All right. All those in favour, raise an arm. Fantastic. Thank you. Unanimous. That concludes our very brief services policy committee meeting. Exactly. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Tammy. Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Greenhalgh.
Can I just have a matter arising? Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this is the right forum to bring this up, but I'm sure you'll be able to answer me. Wangarang are struggling at the moment with works for the people to do. So I was just wondering if we could possibly get a report on what contracts we have with Wangarang and what services they do for us.
Through to you, Mr. CEO.
Sure, we can do that, and possible history of previous involvement with Wangarang. Okay, yes, we can do that.
Excellent. Councillor Power.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to give a shout out to the Community Services team and Kristen Hunter and the team that actually put the Sorry Day and Reconciliation Day. It was just a fantastic day. Very much overwhelming with the amount of people that attended on a bitterly cold day, with Hope of Flame too. So I just want to say thank you to all the team that actually really did an amazing job that day. Amazing job to bring the community together. So many services and so many community people. So congratulations to those.
Thank you, Councillor Power. I'll second that. It was, despite the discussing whether it was a really good event crammed into a small space, but no, fantastic. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Alrighty, that concludes the Services Policy Committee meeting. 43, and I'll call on the Mayor to resume the council meeting.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. We'll move on to general reports. Item 5.1. The mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh. Any speakers on this topic? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Unanimous. I'll move on to item 5.2, which is post-exhibition strategic policy. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Mallard. Any speakers? Councillor Peterson. Councillor Peterson.
Just two questions. The first on the social media policy ST18 on page 69. Well, too bad then I missed that one, but I'll go to page 84, 5.2. In the ST26, there was a delay in the, because this policy's got to go in execution 28 days. There's no council-led development applications. I want to clarify that was only applications like, say, the stadium that council's involved with, not other DAs having.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we took a lot of notice to make sure that we didn't delay any of the council development applications. So we didn't have any before us that were full development applications that would be caught by that policy being on exhibition. So it didn't delay us any.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Unanimous.
Against? Carried. We'll move into closed. I'll do all the, I'll do the. The Executive Officer will now advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
No such submissions have been received.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2004, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of a kind as referred to Section 10A/2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of council meeting closed to the press and public. 6.1, tender maintenance of public open space. And 6.2, expression of interest, for car park, are classified confidential under provision of Section 10A/2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to C, information that would be, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person and whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. And 6.3, submissions redaction, 6th of June 2023, relating to Section E, information that would be, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law. Can I have someone move? Councillor McDonald. Can I have a seconder that we move? Thanks, Councillor Evans. Can I have put that motion? All in favour? Against? Carried.